Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He is Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. Of course, it's all brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code BRAVES, or we should say extra innings for 10% off. Don't do extra innings, do Braves if you want to get the 10% off. Lindsay, boots on the ground, and probably the biggest news of the night had absolutely zero to do with the game. It's what you found out after the game, that now Spencer Strider is headed for an MRI to see what's going on with his elbow.
Yeah, so not the outing that we expected from Mr. Strider, right? Notice the velocity was down a little bit. He was throwing around 95 or so, and he's usually 97, 98. Locations weren't quite great. And from what we learned from Travis d'Arnaud, from manager Brian Snitker, is when he came out of the game, when Strider came out of the game, he mentioned at that point, not any time between innings, but at that point, after 4 innings, that his elbow was, the words used was always discomfort, right? So we don't know if it's some sort of ache, pain, whatever it was, but everybody said discomfort. They were very particular on that. And so trainer checked him out there at the ballpark. They went ahead and sent him home. He's going to have an MRI tomorrow because they don't know what it is. Now, obviously, the first thing we all jump to when you hear elbow pain from a pitcher is Tommy John. One of the symptoms of Tommy John, besides the elbow discomfort, is reduced velocity. That's typically a thing that you hear. We obviously do not know for sure what this is. It is concerning. They weren't too terribly concerned, at least outwardly to us. Brian Snitker, he talked about it for about 45 seconds. It was the very end of the press conference. And we actually had to be prompted to kind of bring it up because they weren't sharing the information. But elbow discomfort, Spencer Strider did have Tommy John surgery in college at Clemson already. So if this is what that diagnosis ends up being, and again, that we do not know, we will not know until he has an MRI tomorrow, that would be his second in his career. And so obviously that's the worst case scenario. This could just be some soreness and discomfort. This could be nothing, but it is rather scary news when you don't have more information, and we're not going to have more information until probably when we meet with Brian Snitker before the game tomorrow.
Is best case scenario, and I'm just thinking of this from a pitcher's aspect and some of the guys that I've talked to, he's thrown in cold weather situations both in Chicago and it's cool in Atlanta tonight. I see you right now with a jacket on as well.
It is cool.
So it's a cool night. And has that got anything to do with it? Because with the lack of concern from d'Arnaud or Snitker, it makes me wonder if it's just one of those situations where it's just not a good scenario to be throwing 95 plus mile per hour fastballs because it's below 60 degrees.
I mean, it's not ideal conditions, but it's not anything that they haven't done, right? Like, it was colder than this in Philadelphia when Strider made his first start against Philly, right?
Okay.
Like, it was, and he did do some throwing and things like that to start to warm up on Wednesday before that game was finally canceled, which should have been postponed a long time before it actually was, about 45 minutes before game time. But the cold doesn't help. Typically, guys will talk about they might have trouble getting hot or getting warm. And I mean that in the context of their arm, not temperature, when it's cold. But I don't necessarily know if that had a ton to do with it. And I would kind of chalk this outing and the velocity and the locations up to the cold, if not for the fact that he reported elbow discomfort. And that's something I think that's the differentiator here. If he just came out and said it was cold and I wasn't really, just one of those nights, wasn't really feeling it, I wouldn't have thought much of it. But when he comes out and specifically told the team, my elbow is not comfortable, my elbow hurts, that's definitely something different.
So let me ask the quiet part out loud, because a lot of Braves fans are going to ask this. Was he overworked in the spring? Because we saw how he took the spring. He took the heads-on approach of let me blow everybody away. Let me be in midseason form in spring. They're going to ask that. They're going to say, have the Braves overworked him in the spring, and is that what led to this?
So the Braves did a pretty good job of being mindful of the workload, right? He didn't start off that first day throwing 5-6 innings. Jesse Chavez was thrown out there for 40-something pitches in his very first outing with the White Sox in late February, right?
Yeah, but that's Jesse Chavez. He's a hero. We love him.
His arm is rubber. He can do whatever he wants, yeah. Snicker talked about that today, by the way. Said like that dude, when he puts on a Braves jersey on that mound, he's just a different person. It's amazing.
Different dude.
But no, he came to camp in pretty ready to go already. So he was doing some work on his own. The Braves did a good job of being mindful of the workload they were giving him, right? There was innings limit set. There were games when he felt good and said he wanted to go longer, and they went ahead and pulled him out. We only saw him get back into a game one time in spring, that very last outing, when he just got through those innings quicker than they thought he would. And so he wanted to go back out for one more for some more work. I don't think he was overworked. I think this is just something where I hate to say, I really hate to say this. I had a lot of conversations with people in the press box and around, on the field today. This is something that happens, right? The harder you throw, the more likely this is to happen. And I don't necessarily think the Braves did anything wrong. I don't think Spencer Strider did anything wrong. I think, and I don't want to make this sound like it's one, like this is definitely what's happening. We don't know if this is Tommy John, a UCL injury or something else. But I think this is a scenario where I don't know that anybody really is at fault here, other than the fact that the human body just really was not designed to throw a baseball like it does 100 times in a game at 95 miles an hour. It's just not made for that. So,
well, let's break down his start a little bit, is because I don't think it was as bad as it looked. 4 innings pitch. He did give up 7 hits, 5 earned runs. He did walk 3, but he did strike out 4. I think the biggest thing you talked about was the lack of velo or velocity. And the reason being is because he's throwing his fastball. Mark Bowman tweeted out something like he only had 24% whiff rate, which he usually is way higher than that as far as last year was concerned on the fastball. However, face on the ground, there were a few hits, Lindsay, that were bleeders. There were broken bats. I mean, the opening home run, you throw it 96, it gets hit 106, it's going out of the park. That's how that works.
That was a slider that kind of caught zone 2, which is middle, top of the zone. Not where you want to leave a slider, right? But no, a note that I have in the takeaways, which are getting posted probably by the time this podcast goes up, and 3 of those hits, I believe, not only were under 75 miles an hour, they were under 70 miles an hour, right?
That's ridiculous.
There was a couple hard hit balls. Eugenio Suarez, that double off the wall was like 107, right? That home run was like 100 miles an hour. But for the most part, a disproportionate number of those hits off of Strider were just soft contact that landed in no man's land between the infield and outfield, or trickled through a hole in the infield. It's not like he got blasted for 10 barrels.
Right.
He just, they did a good job. This is one of those games where this evens out over the course of a season, right? He got batted to the death. Like, this evens out because you'll have some games where guys will sting balls and they'll go right to a defender. This was just the flip side of that, the inverse of that. That happens from time to time. And unfortunately, it happened to Strider. And a lot of that, it feels like the home run was off the slider, but a lot of that, it feels like, was off the fastball. I have to go back and actually check that. But it feels like a lot of that, he wasn't getting a lot of whiffs on the fastball, and a lot of those weak hits were off of that fastball. And that's just, it's unfortunate that that's kind of how it broke down, right? Like, it's not fair to him that he had to deal with that. But the numbers look worse than they are when you look at the quality of the batted balls versus the results that came out of them.
Overshadowed by the Strider news and by the sore elbow or discomfort in the elbow is the fact that the bullpen hung zeros on the Arizona Diamondbacks whenever Chavez, as well as everybody else, came in behind him and basically went to work and did business on the Arizona Diamondbacks, who, by the way, are probably a better team than they were last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I want to say, between the relievers before you got to the 10th inning of Pierce Johnson, I want to say it was 2 hits, 2 walks, maybe 3 strikeouts, no runs. And I think I tweeted this during the game. What's this thing about the depth of the Braves bullpen when the 5th reliever you brought out of your pen was Pierce Johnson, who had an ERA under 1 with Atlanta last year? And you saw what he looked like at the 10th. Struck 2 of those guys out, was absolutely filthy. What's it say about the Braves' depth that he's the 5th guy out of the pen, and behind him, you still had, if you needed them, you still had AJ Minter and Tyler Matzik. This is probably legitimately one of the deepest bullpens in baseball. You saw from the Arizona perspective what it looks like when a team does not have enough quality options in their pen. They had to go to Ginkle in the 8th. He was kind of not gassed, but he was not ready to go by the 9th. You saw what that looked like. Atlanta comes back and ties it up. Shout out to Jared Kelenic for getting that game-tying double. I think it's his first RBI in Atlanta. That they're trying to find the ball for him to get the ball for him, and Atlanta walks it off in the 10th by Travis d'Arnaud. It's just that bullpen is absurd, and you could not ask for more from those guys.
I completely agree. Before I let you go, I do need to thank Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code Braves. 10% off is what you can get there as well. They have teas as well as flavored coffees. Be sure to go there and hit that promo code Braves. Get your 10% off. All right, to wrap things up, put a bow on this. Walk me through the walk-off at the end with the ghost runner that we get to put on second. I'm still not a fan of that. I'm sorry. I'm an old school guy. But still, when it comes to nights like tonight, I'll take it.
Yeah, so it was Forrest Wall pinch running, I believe, for Orlando Arcia, because I was trying to figure out, okay, Luis Guillorme is going to play shortstop if we don't score here. And the Travis talked about, like, he noticed the infield was in, right? I'm sorry, the outfield. The outfield was playing shallow because Forrest Wall's known for having great speed. And so the goal for Travis was just get the ball deep enough to advance the runner. Like, obviously, you want to bring him in, right? Like, you want to get the walk-off. But the goal, he said, was just hit it far enough where Forrest can get to third. That was what he was trying to do. And obviously he did more than that. Double off the wall. He said as soon as, I try to remember the exact quote. I believe Travis said as soon as he saw the outfielder turn to go run after it, he's like, we got it. We got it. Like, it's why he barely rounded first. Like, he knew. Like, he saw the outfielder turn around. He saw Forrest go ahead and break. He made the good read of going ahead and break. He knows this guy's not going to catch it. And Forrest Wall scores. We win. And everybody we talked to after the game, we talked to Matt Olson, we talked to Jared Kelenic. Everybody said, like, you just kind of, like, as long as there's a strike left in the game, this team just believes they're going to do it. Brian Sinker said, like, they've done it, not to jinx it, but they've done it so many times that it's easy to believe you're going to do it again. And obviously they did it again. This is the third opening day in this ballpark that they've walked it off. Kind of cool.
It's absolutely awesome. And kudos to Travis d'Arnaud, typical team player. One of his opening statements was, I'd like to thank everybody that did it in the 9th in order to give him the opportunity to be able to do it in the 10th. So total team guy. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. It's all brought to you by Braves or by Plains Coffee. We are Braves today. Lindsay's going to have recaps that are coming up. We got another article that's going to be coming up as far as the elbow is concerned. So a lot to read at bravestoday.com. Go to plainscoffee.com, promo code Braves, 10% off. Lindsay, enjoy yourself. Have a great weekend. As far as the ballpark is concerned, you look bundled up. You should be a little warmer as far as the rest of the weekend is concerned.
I'm hoping so. Thanks.